TARDIS Guy 123 here, and today I'm going to be doing kind of a special review, I guess, given that it is a special story. It is of the Two Doctors, and before I start this review, I would just like to thank everyone who watched, contributed to, commented on, liked, or just got involved in Big Finish Week in any way. I class it as a real success on my channel. I really did enjoy doing that, and I hope everyone enjoyed watching it or being involved in it. And yes, so thank you to everyone for that. And now we are moving on to the Two Doctors. So like a return to normality, I guess. Return to normal reviews. And what a way to return. And so yeah, anyway, here we have BBC. This is quite an old one, actually. That's why it's over here and not over here with the DVD written there like it normally is. Then you've got the Doctor Who logo, same as always. The Two Doctors. You've got Sontaran there. I think that's Group Marshal Stike. You've got the 6th Doctor there, 2nd Doctor there, 2 discs, and you've got the Hacienda, or whatever it's called, the Spanish place there, and along with some Spanish background stuff as well. Colin Baker's years 84 to 86, and here is the side there. As I said, quite an early release, that's why it doesn't have the To Entertain logo there. It's just before they were involved in that. Then on the side here, sorry, on the back here, we have pictures up here. Got Tracini there, one of them, Distari, Shokai, Sontarans, Dr. Peri, 2nd Doctor. So yeah, the Two Doctors by Robert Holmes. This is the penultimate story by Robert Holmes. His next one, The Mysterious Planet, did end up being his last, starring Colin Baker and Patrick Charlton right there. There's the description, and here are the special features. There's quite a lot, because some of the early releases hardly featured any, but this one does feature quite a lot, which is probably why it wasn't made into a special edition. But anyway, you've got commentary there, and you've also got a fix with Sontarans. I'm not really qualified to discuss the politics behind this and whatnot, on the whole controversy issue. It has actually been removed now, I believe, so if you buy this one, it probably won't feature that special feature. But yeah, which is, I don't know, unfortunate maybe, but it's just the BBC doing what they do. And as you can see there, starring Colin Baker and Janet Fielding, so it does contain Tegan, and probably the best part of it is their little dynamic going on there. You know, Tegan works quite well with the 6th Doctor, and I'd like Big Finish to pick up on that, to be honest. But anyway, moving on now, you've got Behind the Sofa, Robert Holmes and Doctor Who. That's a very nice documentary, 45 minutes that one. Beneath the Lights, which is the studio recording of the Two Doctors, and Beneath the Sun, which is the the Spanish location filming of the Two Doctors, and that's 35 minutes and 25 minutes respectively. So that is a good hour and 3/4 worth of just behind the scenes stuff right there. And we've also got a couple of other little ones as well, like Adventures in Time in Spain. So yes, now let's open this up and take a look on the inside. Right here, and there is that. It is the very old disc, so it doesn't have anything too extravagant on it. It's literally just silver with the title and other basic stuff. And there is the booklet. Now let's take a better look at that. You got the Sontaran there. Once again, got a little bit of writing along the side there. If we open this up, I'm having a little trouble here. Yep, there we go. Have everything going on in there. And then finally on the back here you have the chapter points. It is 3 parts, but it's 3 45-minute episodes. So basically a 6-parter, and is pretty much the last of its kind in a way, because after this it was only 4-parters and 2-parters for the most part, unless you count what's it called, Trial of the Time Lord as all one story, in which case 14-part. But anyway, this is very much the last 6-parter / 3 double-length parter, whatever you like to consider it as. So yeah, it's just a bit special in that way. And it's probably it is actually the longest multi-Doctor story, and also the smallest multi-Doctor story, in the sense that it only features 2 Doctors rather than 3 or 5 or 4, depending on how you look at Tom Baker's involvement in that. But Anyway, The Two Doctors itself, as a story, what do I think of it? Because there is a fair bit of controversy about it, actually. It was kind of the reason that Doctor Who got put on hiatus in the first place. It was during the kind of like scene, the violence in this story, which pushed the BBC over the edge and gave them, well, an excuse to cancel it, really, or put it on hiatus, as it was later revised as. So, yeah, that is rather unfortunate. I never really did recover from that, but is this story at fault? Is that a bad thing? And honestly, when I was much younger, I wasn't very pleased with that whole violence aspect of it. That was quite unfortunate in a lot of ways, especially with the Sixth Doctor and the cyanide thing. But when you think about it, the Fourth Doctor used cyanide in the brain of Morbius to kill Solon, I believe his name was, and no one really raised an eyebrow at that. No one really points out that fact too much, but the Sixth Doctor does it here, and everyone rants on and on about it in their attacks on the Sixth Doctor and kind of like say, oh, previous Doctors would never have done that, but they did, and maybe it's just because it's a bit more violent in its portrayal rather than just leaving the cyanide smokes to go in and kill Solon. Here, the Sixth Doctor actually grabs it and like puts it up against Shockeye's mouth to kill him. Yeah, I guess that is in one essence why it's violence, but you know, at the same time he was being chased, and in the end they both ended up dead. There's no real difference there. So yes, now moving on to the Second Doctor involvement in this story, and you know, this is Patrick Troughton's last go in the role. He's been in every multi-Doctor story up until this point, actually, which is quite special. And you know, it's nice to have him back once again here. Interesting that they chose his Doctor, and you know, I'm not sure what it is, but there's just something about the dynamic between the Sixth Doctor and the Second Doctor that works very well. It's a shame it's not actually utilised that much in this story. It may be 3 parts, well, 3 45-minute parts long, but they don't interact all that much, which is rather unfortunate. You do get the Sixth Doctor interacting with Jamie a lot, though, which is nice, and you get a little bit of the Second Doctor with Peri, but nevertheless, it is quite interesting when they are together. It's just a shame there's not that much of it in the grand scheme of things, but nevertheless, they do both get involved. The first part of this story is very much the Second Doctor's. It starts off as very much a Second Doctor and Jamie story in a lot of ways. It takes quite a while for the Sixth Doctor and Peri to get into the story, and even longer for them to actually get involved. But then during the second half of part 1, the Second Doctor kind of like disappears from proceedings, and the Sixth Doctor takes over, and it's wonderful how structured that is. However, I do feel the structure falls apart a bit towards the ends with the whole double cross thing and the whole Shockeye and the Second Doctor going in to get a meal during part 3. I feel that kind of thing would have been best kept in part 2, maybe, you know, before the grand resolution. I don't know, it's just that part of the structuring doesn't sit too well with me, and you know, is it padding? Arguably, it does expand on the character and kind of like sort of like allows the subplot of the Second Doctor being turned into an atrium to develop much more. But you know, at the same time, I'm not sure whether it was right to have that placed so close to the conclusion of this story, especially given that it can be seen as just padding in a lot of ways. And maybe that's why Oscar's rather violent death, is looked down upon by a lot of people, because it was involved in a padding section and it didn't have much impact on the story. I don't know, I personally am not too angry about that death scene. I mean, he was quite a good character and it was quite a sad death, so it involved emotionally there. And yeah, it's a bit hard to say, really. Take it or leave it, I think, is the attitude towards that one. And their involvement earlier in the story, Oscar and I've forgotten the woman's name, the Spanish woman. I'm just going to call her that and be extremely offensive. But yeah, I think they have a wonderful relationship. It's sort of like the double act thing that Robert Holmes does so well. That's sort of like playing up there. And they do work very well together. There's one funny line I remember in particular where he's going on about his moths, and he says he likes to put them on the wall and admire them for hours on end, and then she's just like, don't you have a television? Which I think is a very Robert Holmesian line. It's very much slipped in there. and overall just very enjoyable line. And probably this line has a lot of comedy. This story has a lot of comedy in it, a lot more than you probably expect. But at the same time, it is a very serious story as well, with the whole idea of the Androgams kind of like eating people and whatnot, and the whole cannibalism aspect of this, which is quite a heavy subplot, a heavy idea, and it's probably the reason why some people aren't too fond of this story. But you know, overall, I say it is a solid story. You got a good villain in there as well. Chesini, played by Jacqueline Pearce, who is of course Servalan in Blake 7. So short, like she gets those big women women in charge roles a lot, and she does them very well. And here she does a good job with Chesini, but the Sontarans in this, they are sort of like not the main villain. They aren't really necessary to the plot at all. They're good in the first part, they're sort of like necessary for the first part, but after that they're just sort of like hanging around, and you get the feeling that Robert Holmes doesn't know too much, doesn't really know what to do with them, because they're not the main villains here, which is rather unfortunate. And you know, it sort of like makes me think maybe they could have done this story without them, because they really could be swapped out for any villain, and then you could have had Andrew Smith's The First Sontarans in there as the Sontarans story of the series, because the only reason that's got cancelled, I believe, was because the Two Doctors was going to feature Sontarans instead. They didn't want Sontarans to feature twice in a story, and the Two Doctors was the one that was chosen to feature the Sontarans. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. I haven't actually listened to The First Sontarans, Big Finish adaptation, though I do hope to get it at some point. But you know, that's just what I'd say could have been done, because the Sontarans are a bit wasted in this story, and also their neck pieces are rather unfortunate. The height aspect of it sort of annoys me, having two different size ones. We could just say they're different batches or whatever, because while they are clone races in a way, they're not all identical as such. They're sort of like bred from the same genetic material, and you know, different batches produce different clones, pretty much, produce different types, pretty much. But the neck pieces are rather unfortunate, just when they move them. I don't know why, they seem to get a bit worse over time, Sontarans. You know, they very much change on their every appearance, and this is an improvement over their look in the Invasion of Time, I will say, and the voice is definitely an improvement as well. They're sort of like going back. This is sort of like closest to the new series sometimes in a lot of ways, actually, with the deeper booming voice rather than the hissing voice of Lynx and Styre, or the cockney voice of the Invasion of Time Sontarans. But yeah, overall I'd say the Sontarans, yeah, they're good in this, especially in the first part. They do their part, but overall they are a bit wasted in this story towards the end, and you really get the feeling that Robert Holmes doesn't really know what to do with them too much. So now let's get on to rating this story, because you know, I've talked about it enough now. I've talked about my thoughts on it, talked about how I think the Sixth Doctor and Second Doctor should have interacted more. So let us now discuss the score for this story. And oh wait, actually, speaking of the score, I was talking about rating score, but actually I'm going to talk about music score as well, quickly while I remember, because it is a very, very good music score, and this is probably my favourite 80s music, actually. And you know, the 80s didn't always produce the best music, but this one is great, I will say that much. And you know, it's hard to really describe, sort of like the action music in this is very well done, and sort of like the Spanish music also, it's all very nicely done, I will say. So yes, that's my thoughts on the music, which is, yeah, definitely the best of the 80s music, I will say. Now, at last we are going on to the rating, and I am going to give it a 8 out of 10. Almost gave it a 7.5, but I'm going to be generous and go 8, because it is an enjoyable story. Trails off a bit towards the end, but nevertheless, it does keep the momentum going for the most part. So yes, I will say 8 out of 10 is what I'm going to give the Two Doctors. So, without further ado, thank you for watching everyone, and I will see you all next time for the review of the 200th main range release, The Secret History. But until then, bye everyone.